Can I borrow your mom for today? Kennedy blinked. What? The little boy pointed at the woman standing behind her. I will bring her back before school closes. Kennedy frowned. My mom? He nodded. Why? He looked toward the school gate. Not hoping, checking, the way a person checks that a door stayed closed. Then he looked back at her. I will tell you after the race. The whistle blew before Kennedy could ask anything else. Across the field, children rushed toward their parents. Mothers tied shoelaces. Fathers bent to adjust race ribbons. Teachers clapped and called for every child to find their partner. The little boy did not move. He stood exactly where he was, small hands gripping the straps of his backpack, and he kept watching that gate. Not the way a child watches for someone he wants to arrive, the way a child watches for someone he is praying will not. Keisha had heard every word. She had come to Kennedy's sports day with extra snacks, 2 bottles of water, and the specific happiness of a mother, determined to make a memory out of an ordinary afternoon. She had not come expecting a strange little boy to ask her daughter for permission to borrow her. Kennedy turned to her slowly. Mom. Keisha looked from her daughter to the boy. His uniform was perfect. His shoes were polished. His hair was combed. Nothing about him looked neglected. And that was exactly what made her chest tighten, because a child this cared for should not be standing alone. The teacher called again. Parent and child teams, please come forward for the 3-legged race. Kennedy leaned in and whispered, Can we let him borrow you? The boy looked at the ground, as if he had not expected the question to be repeated out loud. Keisha crouched in front of him. What is your name, sweetheart? He answered without hesitation. Kijun. Kijun, she said it gently. Is someone coming for you? For the first time his face changed. Barely. A small tightening at the mouth. He glanced at the gate again. I told them my dad is coming. She noticed the shape of that sentence. Not my dad is coming. I told them. Keisha did not push. She only held out her hand. Then, until he comes, you can race with us. Kijun looked at her hand, then at Kennedy. Kennedy gave one serious nod, like she had just approved an important business contract. Borrowing accepted. For 1 second, Kijun looked confused. Then the smallest breath of amusement escaped him. Not quite a laugh, close. They tied the ribbon around Kennedy's ankle and Kijun's ankle. Keisha steadied them from behind. The teacher raised the whistle. Left foot first, Kennedy whispered. Your left or my left? Kijun whispered back. Kennedy frowned. There are 2 lefts. The whistle blew. They nearly fell on the first step. Keisha caught them. Kennedy laughed instantly. Kijun looked startled, like the sound had surprised him, and then Kennedy pulled him forward. Come on, borrowed brother. I am not your brother. Only until school closes. That time Kijun laughed. Small, quick, almost like he tried to catch it before it got out. But Keisha heard it, and for a reason she could not name, it made her throat tighten. They did not win. Kennedy blamed the ribbon. Kijun blamed coordination failure. Keisha blamed both of them for arguing while walking, and for a few minutes, Kijun forgot to look at the gate. When the race ended, parents cheered and children ran into arms and phones came out and pictures were taken. Kennedy dragged Kijun toward the picnic blanket. Now you have to eat with us. Kijun stopped. No thank you. Keisha opened the lunch bag. You do not like sandwiches? I did not say that. He looked at the food, then at Kennedy, then back at Keisha. Your food is for your family. Kennedy patted the space beside her. Today you borrowed us, so sit. He stayed standing. Keisha took out a small plate and set a sandwich, some fruit, and a juice box on it. She did not push it toward him like charity. She simply placed it beside Kennedy's plate, as if it had always belonged there. There is enough. Kijun sat slowly. He picked up the sandwich with both hands. He did not eat. Is something wrong? Keisha asked. He shook his head fast. No. Then why are you not eating? His fingers tightened around the bread. His voice dropped. Nobody ever packed it just for me. Kennedy stopped chewing. Keisha went completely still. The field stayed loud around them. Children shouting, parents laughing, teachers calling names off clipboards. But at that blanket everything went quiet. Because Kijun had food. He always had food. What he had never had was someone who chose it for him. He seemed to realize he had said too much. He took a bite immediately. "It is good," he said, too politely, too quickly. Keisha looked away for 1 second, just long enough to steady her face. Kennedy quietly pushed her own juice box toward him. "You can have mine too. I already have one. I know." "Then why are you giving me another?" Kennedy shrugged. "Because borrowed people need extra." That did it. A real smile touched Kijun's face. And at the same moment, across the school entrance, a black luxury SUV turned sharply into the lot. The car did not belong beside the school buses and the family sedans. Too dark, too silent, too expensive. Kijun heard the engine before he saw it. His smile disappeared. A tall man stepped out in a dark suit, phone still in his hand, face controlled, eyes moving fast across the field. The moment he found Kijun, something like relief crossed him. He started walking. Every other child who spotted a late parent would have run. Kijun did not. He stayed seated on the blanket, sandwich still in his hands, and watched his father come closer. Keisha looked from the man to the boy and back again, and the question that had started with one strange sentence became something deeper. Why would a child who arranged to be alone all afternoon not run to his father the moment he arrived? Kang crouched in front of his son. He did not blame traffic. He did not blame the meeting. He said 2 words, "I am sorry." Kijun looked at him quietly, then gave one small nod. He had been disappointed enough times to know his father never broke a promise on purpose, and that, more than anger, was the part that landed on Kang like a weight. A child should not be that understanding. Before they left, Kijun turned and bowed to Keisha and Kennedy. "Thank you for letting me borrow your family." Keisha smiled. "Thank you for bringing our borrowed mom back before school closed." Kijun almost smiled. Almost. Kang introduced himself quietly, apologized for interrupting their afternoon, thanked her for looking after his son. Keisha studied him. This was not the cold billionaire she had imagined when she saw the SUV. This was a father who had arrived too late. As they turned to go, she said one sentence she had not planned. "Children do not remember expensive days, they remember happy ones." Kang did not answer. He did not forget it either. The SUV rolled away and the silence returned at once. Kijun sat by the window, still holding the extra juice box Kennedy had made him keep. Neither of them spoke much. For the first time in a long while, Kang realized he did not know what to ask his own son. 20 minutes later, iron gates opened automatically onto the Kang estate. Perfect gardens, perfect fountains, perfect silence. Everything looked expensive, nothing looked warm. The front door opened before the car stopped. Mrs. Choi and 2 elderly nannies were already waiting. Gentle smiles, unchanged routines. One took Kijun's bag. One reminded him piano began in 20 minutes. One asked about warm milk before homework. Everything exactly on schedule, exactly as every single day. As Kijun started up the stairs, a soft voice called after him. "Young master, please walk." He slowed without turning. He already knew. He sighed to himself, the way a child does when he has stopped expecting an answer. That evening, Kun set a new file on the study desk and noticed his employer staring at the window instead of reading it. "Sir," Kang looked up, "you have mentioned the woman from the school 3 times tonight." "I asked 1 question. You asked 3. Kang had no reply. He turned back to the window. "Did Kijun seem different to you today?" Kun answered without hesitation. "He laughed, sir." The room went quiet. After a long pause, Kang spoke without moving. "I have not heard that in a while." Kun chose his next words carefully. "There are some things money cannot hire." The study stayed silent. Kang did not explain why that sentence hit him where it did. Kun did not ask. Both of them let it sit. The next morning ran in its usual order. Breakfast, homework review, piano. Mrs. Choi set the day's schedule beside Kijun's plate. "Your father asked if there is anything you would like after school." Normally the answer came at once. A puzzle, a book, a model airplane. Today Kijun was quiet. He looked up at his father. "Dad, can I visit Kennedy?" The dining room fell silent. Mrs. Choi looked at Kang. The other nannies stopped what they were doing. It was not an expensive request. It was not even a difficult one. Somehow it surprised everyone. Kang studied his son for a long moment. He had expected another toy, another reward for doing well. Instead, his son wanted to spend an afternoon with a little girl he had known for less than a day. He nodded slowly. All right. A tiny smile appeared and vanished almost as fast. Kijun lowered his head and kept eating, but something had changed. For the first time in a very long while, he was not looking forward to something money could buy. Kang watched him in silence, then looked out the dining room window. He had no idea that saying yes to one ordinary after-school visit was about to take apart every routine his family had lived by for years. That afternoon, Kang drove Kijun himself. No driver, no security, only Kun. For a man who had spent years building walls, leaving his son in a stranger's home on the first visit was impossible. So he did not leave him. He stayed. Keisha's house was nothing like the Kang estate. No gates, no fountains, no silent driveway, a modest home with flowers beside the front steps, children's drawings taped near the window, a small vegetable garden along the side. The moment the door opened, Kijun noticed two things. First, the noise, soft music from the kitchen, a pot simmering, Kennedy dropping her backpack in the hallway with nobody gasping, then the smell, butter, maple syrup, warm pancakes cooling on the table beside a bowl of fruit. Kennedy's eyes lit up. She lowered her voice. Grandpa Kobe made those. Kijun looked at the plate. Should we not ask first? Kennedy stared at him, like he had said something deeply unreasonable. If we ask first, he says no. Before he could answer, she pushed a pancake into his hand. He froze. She took one for herself. He looked toward Keisha in the kitchen getting drinks. He looked toward his father by the doorway, quietly taking in the small, noisy house. He looked back at the pancake. Kennedy had already taken a bite. He took one careful bite. His eyes widened. That was when heavy footsteps came down the hall. An old man entered carrying a bag of flour under one arm. Tall, broad-shouldered, silver hair pointing in several directions, as if he had lost a fight with breakfast. A faded blue apron, white flour on both hands, one sleeve, and half his face. He stopped. He counted the pancakes once, twice. His eyes moved to Kennedy, then to Kijun, then to the half-eaten pancake sitting on the plate like evidence at a crime scene. Silence. Then one flour-covered finger rose slowly. Who stole my pancakes? Kennedy pointed at Kijun without hesitation. It was the borrowed brother. Kijun's eyes went wide. You gave it to me. The old man gasped. So we have a thief and an accomplice. Kennedy screamed with laughter and ran. For 1 second, Kijun did not move. Then the old man took one dramatic step forward, and Kijun ran too. He chased both children through the yard with shocking speed, apron flying, flour still on his cheek, wooden spoon raised like a judge's hammer. Kijun glanced back over his shoulder, stunned. Old people can sprint. The old man finally stopped near the garden fence, leaned on his knees, breathing steadily. Then he looked at Kijun. You run fast. Kijun answered honestly. I thought you were going to catch me. The old man looked offended. He straightened. Catch you? I was protecting my knees. You were losing, Kennedy said. He folded his arms with great dignity. I was demonstrating mercy. A pause. I have reached the age where I allow children to believe they are winning. He looked at the two of them. Now the suspect will please step forward. Kijun quietly raised his hand. I ate one. The old man nodded, deeply impressed. I like this one. He confesses before the investigation begins. He walked to Kang and extended a flour-covered hand. I am Kingston, but do not call me Grandpa. It makes my knees hurt. Call me Kobe. Before Kang could respond, Kennedy grinned. Okay, Grandpa Kobe. Kobe closed his eyes briefly. Keisha came out with drinks. I am sorry. He argues with everyone. Kobe looked shocked. I do not argue. I simply explain why I am right. Kijun laughed, a real laugh. Not polite, not brief, not the kind he gave when adults expected it. Real, because this family did not treat an ordinary afternoon like something to be managed. They treated it like something worth celebrating. Keisha offered Kang coffee. He declined. She offered tea. He declined again. Kobe leaned in and whispered, loud enough for the whole room, do not worry. We will fix him. Kang looked up. Excuse me. Kobe smiled peacefully. Nobody survives this house without eventually accepting coffee. From the doorway, Kun pressed his lips together very carefully. The visits became routine without anyone deciding they would. Some afternoons, Kijun finished his homework at the estate and asked the same quiet question, "Can we go to Kennedy's?" Kang always pretended to consider it, then nodded every single time. One Saturday, Kobe appeared in the garden carrying 3 bright water guns and set them on the grass with great ceremony. Championship rules. Kennedy grabbed hers. "What are the rules?" "Simple," he held up a finger. "First person to surrender loses." Kijun looked at his gun, then at Kobe's. "Why is yours bigger?" Kobe looked down as if noticing for the first time. "Experience. That is not a rule." "It is now." Kennedy was already filling hers at the garden tap. Kijun leaned in and whispered, "We go at the same time." Kennedy whispered back, "On 3. Kobe was still explaining the rules to nobody in particular, and double points for accuracy, which naturally favors the more experienced competitor. 1, Kijun whispered. 2, Kennedy whispered. Kobe turned. "Now, any questions before we 3? The water hit him from both sides at once. He gasped, stepped back, slipped on the wet grass, grabbed the fence. Both children reloaded. "Surrender," Kennedy shouted. Kobe straightened with enormous dignity, water dripping from the apron, silver hair flat against his face. "I do not surrender." Kijun looked at him seriously. "Grandpa Kobe, your story is over." Kobe wiped his eyes. That, a pause, was chapter 1. Both children groaned, they soaked him again. Inside, Kang stood near the kitchen doorway watching. He had not noticed Kun appear beside him. "Sir." Kang did not look away from the window. "What? You are smiling." "I am observing." Kun nodded thoughtfully. "Of course." A pause. "You have been observing for 45 minutes. Kang finally looked at him. Kun looked back with complete professional innocence. On the counter beside Kang sat a cup of coffee. Keisha's coffee, from Keisha's kitchen, that he had accepted without noticing. Kun glanced at the cup, then at his employer, and said nothing. Kang picked it up slowly and took a sip. Not a word. Kun clasped his hands behind his back. "I have not said anything, sir." A pause. "I am simply observing." That same afternoon, while the children chased each other, Kang stood at the fence beside Kobe. For a while, neither spoke. Finally, Kang broke the silence. "How did you raise someone like Keisha?" Kobe smiled without taking his eyes off his daughter. "I stopped trying to raise a perfect child." He watched Keisha laugh as Kennedy nearly tripped over the garden hose. "I just made sure she always knew she was loved." The sentence had no weight when it entered the air, but it settled somewhere deep in Kang, and refused to leave. He had spent years giving Kijun everything money could provide. A perfect house, a perfect schedule, perfect safety. He had solved every problem he could see. He had never once stopped to ask what his son actually felt. That night, long after Kennedy was asleep, Keisha stepped onto the porch and sat on the old wooden swing alone. A few minutes later, Kobe appeared with 2 mugs of tea and handed her one without asking questions. They listened to the crickets. Finally, Keisha spoke. "Sometimes I wonder if I am doing enough for Kennedy." Kobe smiled. "When you were small, I worried about the exact same thing." She looked at him. "You. Every single day." He took a slow sip. "Good parents are not the ones with all the answers. They are the ones who keep showing up." Keisha looked down at her cup. The worry did not disappear, but it felt lighter. Weeks earlier, Kijun had counted the minutes until bedtime. Now he counted the days until the next visit. Mrs. Choi noticed first. He hummed climbing the stairs. He smiled to himself for no reason. One afternoon she heard him laughing quietly in his room, replaying something only he could hear. She stood outside his door and smiled. The mansion was still quiet, but it no longer felt empty. Kang was changing too. He stayed longer after dropping Kijun off. One evening, Keisha handed him coffee without asking, and he accepted it without thinking. They stood on the porch watching the children race across the garden. After a long silence, Keisha said, "You schedule everything." "I have to. Children do not schedule happiness." She watched Kennedy trip over her own feet. They just notice when it is there. Kang said nothing, but he did not look away from his son. Then Kobe tripped over the garden hose, both arms wide, grabbed the fence, missed, grabbed it again, straightened with enormous dignity. I meant to do that. Kennedy collapsed onto the grass. Kijun covered his mouth, too late, and burst out laughing. And then, without planning it, without even noticing, Kang laughed too. A real one. Kobe turned slowly, a wide smile spreading. There you are. I was wondering when we would finally meet you. For once, Kang had no reply. Nobody noticed the car parked across the street. Engine off, windows dark. Kira sat perfectly still inside. Her son was in that garden, laughing with people she had never met. For years she had told herself Kijun was fine, that Kang was the problem, that her son still needed her. But the boy she was watching did not look like a child missing anything. He looked like a child who had found something she had never given him. Fear settled quietly into her chest. She was not losing an argument. She was losing her place. She started the engine and drove away slowly. The laughter continued long after her taillights disappeared. She did not send men that day. She sent papers. A week later, Kuhn set a different kind of file on the study desk. Kang read one line and went very still. Kira had filed for revised custody. Her argument was clean and cruel. A father so negligent he arrived late to his own son's sports day. A father who leaves his child in the home of strangers, with an old man and an unlicensed household. An unstable environment for a boy of means. Kuhn watched his employer's face. Sir, she does not want him back. A pause. She wants to take him from them. Kang set the paper down. For the first time in years, the walls he had built were not enough, because this time, the danger was written in a language money respected. Kira understood one thing about a courtroom. A clean argument needs a dirty picture. So she hired a man to find one. Follow the boy. Wait at the little house. Provoke a scene ugly enough to photograph. An old man losing his temper. A mother shouting. Anything a judge would read as chaos. It looked like another ordinary Saturday. Kobe was in the garden making everyone laugh. Kijun and Kennedy were helping with the tomato plants. Keisha was inside making pancakes. Then the front gate opened and a man walked in without knocking. He held a phone up, recording, and started pushing. Is this where the Kang boy stays? Is this legal? Who is watching these children? Keisha stepped onto the porch, wiping flour from her hands. You need to leave. The man kept the phone raised and stepped closer, deliberately, wanting a reaction. Make me. Go on. Kennedy moved behind her mother. Kijun stepped instinctively beside Kobe and watched. He did not shrink. He watched. Kobe stood, calm. That is far enough. The man looked at the old man in the flour-dusted apron standing between him and the porch, laughed, and shoved him hard, keeping the phone on him the whole time, hoping for the shot. Kobe stumbled back. His heel caught the garden path. He went down. The wooden spoon skipped across the stones. For one frozen second, the whole garden held its breath. Then Kijun moved. He crossed the garden in 4 quick steps and dropped to his knees. Grandpa Kobe. His voice did not shake. Can you sit up? Kobe looked at him. Something shifted in the old man's eyes. Yes. Good. Kijun slipped both hands under his arm and helped him up. The man came forward again, still recording. Kobe was already back on his feet, apron dirty, shoulder aching, eyes completely calm. He did not throw the first hit. He waited for the man to rush him, because a man who rushes an old man on camera has just filmed the wrong movie. When the man lunged, Kobe grabbed the nearest plastic garden chair and swung it once. It caught him across the shoulder. His feet slid sideways on the wet grass. He landed on his back. The phone bounced into the tomatoes, still recording, now pointed at the sky. Before the man could get up, Kobe sat on him and folded his arms. There now, stay. The man struggled. Kobe did not move. I have been gardening since 7 this morning, he said, like he was discussing the weather. I am significantly heavier than I look. Kennedy stared from the porch. Grandpa Kobe, did you just sit on him? Kobe considered the question seriously. I prefer the term experienced negotiations. Even Keisha almost laughed. Neighbors were opening doors. Someone shouted that the police were on the way. The man went limp under Kobe, all his confidence gone. You had one job, Kobe said pleasantly. He looked down. Leave. You chose chapter 5 instead. The black SUV turned into the street before the police arrived. Kang was out before it fully stopped, Kun half a second behind him. They had spent the whole drive expecting the worst. Instead, they found Kobe sitting on a man in the garden, apron dirty, hair full of leaves, expression completely peaceful. Kun stopped, stared, then cleared his throat. "Sir, I believe Grandpa Kobe has resolved the situation." Kang crossed the garden in 3 steps. His eyes moved fast. Keisha, Kennedy, Kobe, Kijun. His son met his eyes and nodded once. "I am okay." Kang exhaled for the first time since his phone rang. Then he looked at his son properly. The boy was not hiding behind anyone. He was standing beside Kobe. Steady. Kang looked at him like he was seeing something for the first time. That evening, everyone gathered at Keisha's house. The broken flower pots had been moved aside. The garden was quieter than usual. Kobe sat between the children on the porch steps, one hand on each of their shoulders, checking them every few minutes the way someone checks a door they want to make sure is still locked. Kang stood near the fence for a long time. Finally, Keisha walked over. "You did not have to come back tonight." He looked at the disturbed garden, the children sitting too quietly, Kobe pretending his shoulder did not hurt. "Yes, I did." "Why?" Kang was quiet for a moment, and then, because the woman he was going to have to trust was about to fight a custody case in her name, he told her the thing he had never told anyone. "When I was married," he said, "the betrayal was not the affair. I could have survived the affair." He watched his son on the steps. "She paid someone inside my own house. A person who fed my son and folded his clothes and smiled at me every morning, was writing down every conversation, every schedule, every movement, and selling it to her." He was quiet a moment. "So when the marriage ended, I let every young person in that house go. I hired people too old to be tempted. I built a home where no one could ever get close enough to hurt him again." He finally looked at her. "And I made it so safe that nothing could live in it, including him." Keisha did not say anything. She did not need to. "That woman is not trying to take him back," Kang said. "She is trying to take him from here." He looked at the garden. At the fence they had all repaired. "And I am not going to let her, because this is the first place my son has ever looked like he was home." The words landed softly. Neither of them moved. The sentence did not need an answer. It just needed to be heard. Kira walked into the hearing the way she used to walk into meetings. Chin up, composed. She had a clean argument and a dirty picture, and she believed both would hold. Then the picture fell apart. The footage her man had shot did not show chaos. It showed him walking uninvited through a gate, shoving an unarmed old man to the ground, and lunging at him while children watched. His phone, still recording from the tomato bed, had caught his own voice goading Keisha to hit him, and the money did the rest. Kang's lawyers had followed the payment. It ran from the man on the ground, back through a shell account, to Kira. She changed direction. "I only wanted to document the environment." The record disagreed. The old surveillance payments from the marriage surfaced beside the new one, the same handwriting on a longer story. Every exit closed before she reached it. She looked across the room at Kang. He had said nothing since she entered. He simply let the evidence do what he would not. The judge did not need long. As it ended, Kira looked at him one last time. "She is replacing me." It was not really a question. Kang answered anyway. "No." His voice was quiet. "You lost that place yourself. Slowly, before any of them existed." For the first time, the real fear under everything else surfaced on her face. She had not been frightened of Keisha. She had been frightened of what she saw in that garden. Her son laughing, reaching for other people first, trusting a family she had never built for him. She had not lost custody years ago. She had lost his trust, quietly, without noticing, until it was gone. Several weeks later, long after the house had gone quiet, Kang sat alone in his office. A document waited unsigned on his desk. Instead, he opened the security feed on his laptop, the camera pointed at Keisha's garden. Kobe was in the middle of a story, which naturally reminds me of 1986. 3 voices groaned at once. Kobe smiled. "Fine. 1987. Kennedy laughed. Keisha tried to stop everyone from eating cookies before dinner. Nobody listened. Then Kang heard it. His son's laugh. Full, unguarded, free. He watched the screen without moving, His hand came up slowly and covered his mouth. And then, almost too quietly to hear, he said it. I forgot what his laugh sounded like. The office was completely still. Outside the window, the city moved on. Inside, a father sat alone with a screen full of laughter, and the quiet understanding that the most important thing his wealth had ever done for his son was drive him to a small house with flowers by the door, burnt pancakes on Saturday mornings, and an old man who never let a happy memory escape. That same evening, Kobe called Kijun onto the porch steps and sat beside him without a word. They looked out at the garden together, the tomato plants, the fence they had repaired, the patch of grass still flattened from the water gun championship. Then he reached into his apron pocket and placed a worn notebook into Kijun's hands. Kijun looked down, then up. I cannot take this. Kobe smiled. I already filled it. Kijun opened the first page. Across the top, in large, careful handwriting, the day a little boy borrowed a mom. His throat tightened. He turned the pages. Tiny memories filled every line. Kennedy blamed him for the pancakes immediately. Old people can sprint. First real laugh, second race. Shared juice box. Water gun defeat, according to unreliable witnesses. And near the end, he asked if he could have a notebook. He did not show me what he wrote on the first page. I think I know anyway. Kijun stopped at that last line. Read it twice. His eyes went watery. He closed the notebook, held it to his chest, and without a word leaned into Kobe's side. Kobe put an arm around him. Neither of them spoke. The garden was quiet. The evening light was almost gone. Everything that mattered had already been written down. After a long while, Kobe spoke, very quietly. One day you will forget the dates. Kijun listened. You will forget the weather. He tapped the notebook once where it rested against the boy's chest. But do not forget how today felt. Kijun nodded. He did not trust his voice enough to answer. Keisha found Kang near the fence a little later, watching Kijun through the window. His son was at the kitchen table now, the notebook open, carefully writing something on a page. Keisha stood beside him. Neither spoke for a moment. Then she said quietly, Thank you. Kang shook his head. No, you gave him what I could not. She looked at him. You let him come here. A man who trusted nobody. That was not a small thing. He met her eyes. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The kitchen light fell across her face, and he noticed things he had been careful not to notice before. The way she spoke about his son like he already belonged to her. The way she was still standing here at the end of everything, and still finding something kind to say. Something moved in his chest, something he had not felt in a very long time. He almost said it. Whatever it was right there. Then Kobe's voice exploded through the back door. Keisha, if you are done abandoning your old father, I have an announcement. Keisha looked away first and pressed her lips together. Kang exhaled slowly. From the corner of the garden, Kun studied the sky with great professional interest. Inside, Kennedy opened one eye, then closed it, smiling. Kobe stood in the middle of the garden, arms folded, expression extremely serious. I have been thinking. Kennedy looked at Kijun. Kijun looked at Kennedy. Neither moved. Kobe looked at Kijun directly. You came here to borrow a mother. Kijun nodded carefully. And then you borrowed a sister. Kennedy grinned. And a grandfather, Kijun said. Kobe raised one finger. I prefer Kobe. Grandpa Kobe? Kennedy corrected instantly. Kobe closed his eyes briefly, then looked back at Kijun. So, are you done borrowing? Kijun was quiet for exactly 1 second. Then Kennedy spoke for him. Can I keep my borrowed brother? Kijun looked at her. Only if I can keep borrowing your family. Kobe's voice came at once. No borrowing. Everyone looked at him. He smiled, the kind of smile that meant he had been waiting a long time to say this. We are keeping everybody. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Kang quietly placed one hand on Kijun's shoulder. Kijun looked at his father, then at Kennedy, then at Keisha, then back at Kobe. This time, he smiled. Some families you are born into, some you borrow, and some, if you are very lucky, decide to keep you back. If this story found a soft place in you, do something small for us. Tap the like button so more people get to borrow this family too. Tell us in the comments who you would lend your afternoon to. No questions asked. And subscribe, because there is always another door with flowers beside it. And we are just getting started. We will see you at the next one.